साऱ्या मालाचा मालधनी, साऱ्या मालाचा मालधनी, भीमाई रामजीचा लाल.
I am Nidhi. On behalf of the AML Organizing Committee, I extend my very warm welcome to all of you to the 20th Ambedkar Memorial Lecture 2024 at Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. Dignitaries to take their respective seats on the dais. Event, I heartily extend my warm welcome to Professor Shankar Das, Pro Vice Chancellor, TIS Mumbai, with a floral welcome, and I request Professor Ramaiah to do the honors. I also request Professor Shankar Das to welcome our esteemed speaker, Professor Shaileshkumar Darokar, to be welcomed with a bouquet. As the architect of Indian Constitution, champion of social justice, and scholar across various fields, Dr. Ambedkar's ideas has marked its own relevance in the 21st century. Once again, I welcome you all to the evening filled with intellectual insights on the theme Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and Reservation Policy in India.
Very good evening to everybody and Jai Vivi. We had a very interesting evening yesterday that I was very fortunate to witness this. Today we are in the next day. This is the final day of our annual signature program, Ambedkar Memorial Lecture. This is the 20th years of lecture. So I really like to be wonderfully, very delightfully, just like to welcome all the students, the guests, and particularly today's speaker is Dr. Shaileshkumar. I'd really like to welcome Professor Darokar with a huge round of applause for his contribution to study, research, and also all his publications related to in and around the literature related to B.R. Ambedkar. I think he is the right person, none other than him could do justice to this particular topic, and I'm sure we'll be able to hear him completely, and it will be extremely enlightening from your experience, your writing, and your research. I also like to be thankful to Professor Ramaiah, who is a very old, my colleague, and that is the time when we came to this institute, we are absolutely few. Let me tell you very honestly, it was never possible to think of such a long journey. 28 years we have formalized, institutionalized this Ambedkar Memorial Lecture. I think all the credit goes to Professor Ramaiah. He took the lead. And truly, the worth of the literature, reading, writing of Ambedkar has made huge change in the globally. As you know, those literatures were very precious to India, also all parts of the world. And that's the way possibly they were most fortunate few who has studied and really done a good job in the institute to really take the legacy forward, to really make sure the Ambedkar thought, philosophy, culture, literature, justice, equity, social justice, all the concepts became very easy for us to understand only because of their research, writing, and all. I lagged behind in the process of this learning because my job was absolutely different. I come from public health, sometimes social work, sometimes training and development. So I sometimes feel that yes, whatever I have learned to listen from them, it became a much more enriching experience from their own experience. I'd also like to welcome and thank Dr. Vaishali Kole very old and very, very dear colleague of ours. She has been also spearheading many important work in the institute, and her contribution to the students' welfare and the field of disability social work and the cause of social justice is worth mentioning here. I also like to call some of the people who are in front of us. They are my inspiration. And one of the gentlemen who has been our, torchbearer of this institute, he was a lonely man, and he was the gentleman who had really come long way to this institute, retired, but is still very connected to this institute. He is Mr. Bise. He is just here. He was our Deputy Register Academics. If you think academic institution and academic, that whole department and section has institutionalized so beautifully the functions and its SOPs, its timeline, that entire process he has set up in this institute very, very systematically and very scientifically. I really learned a great deal in terms of, he has been my friend, philosopher and guide, and often enough there is a difficulty, and this was full of difficulties and a lot of obstacles, a lot of issues in and around our life. He was the gentleman who has always counseled us, given us a lot of support, moral boosting, and I owe you great indebtedness for your presence today. Thank you, Professor Mr. B. Sethi. I would also like to mention Dr. Gopinath, Dr. Partha Sarathi Mandal, and also my dear friend, Mr. Shiva, and my dear student, and I can also see Student Union President, Atulji. Can I call you Atulji? All right. With his permission, I start calling him Atulji because he has a great legacy of his own thoughts, very strong individuality, and that's the reason all the students here needs to be a leader by themselves. And the way Bhimrat Ambedkar ji has really given us a path to our own individuality, right, and the concept of social justice and our own leadership on our path to the final journey and the final destination of the success and the changing the country to a better place for all of us with the social equity and justice. I can tell you I'm not very expert in the field, but I really like to be, reminded of something. When I was coming today, I told my son, I'm a little worried, what am I going to say? My son said, Papa, I'll give you something very interesting. I said, what is it? He gave me Kindle. That Kindle is there. And on the way I was looking at the Kindle, Amar Chitra Katha about Bhimrao Ambedkar ji. Such a beautifully written small piece of that small, clip of the, magazine. Please read it, and it has given you everything. And I remember from this story when I was coming, and the Bhimji was a Subedar in the British time, Subedar general in the British time in the army. He was the person most humble, very educated. He himself is a teacher. He took the charge of teaching all three of his children and made all of them very successful. And then he had already had 2 children. And then he said when he came back to Mom in Madhya Pradesh those days, and he asked long lost his uncle, would you really like to come? But the uncle, by the time when he has met him, he has already become an absolute saint. He said that I am renounced from this world. I am no more any family person. I will not come. I can only tell you one thing, that next son you will have is the son who will be genius and who will earn that world fame, and that is my blessing to you. You go back. He came back. After a few months, the B.R. Ambedkar was born. So this became a history. As you know, B.R. Ambedkar had a very, very difficult life, because of education, because of that practice of untouchability. I'm saying it was 1819 was his birth year, and today it is 133 years. 133 years, there is a plethora of change in this entire world. Our understanding, our capacity to perceive, those are the days, and today there is a huge amount of change. And that change is for good, and that change which has brought to our people because of the crusader, because of the iconic contribution of we are Ambedkar to our life. And in terms of women upliftment, you talk about social justice and architecture of our constitution. His contribution has been marked by many important milestones in our life today. Every day we practice what is his preaching, son. I also like to say that the kind of a time he has undergone, it was absolutely inhuman kind of a treatment he was meeting in his school, in his neighborhood, wherever he has gone. The distinction between he was from Mahar community and the community of a upper caste. The kind of a torture he has undergone, kind of a issue he has undergone. Only one man who has reformed his life was the name of that teacher was called Ambedkar. He was asked to sit secluded to eat his midday meal, and then he was the teacher who said that you come and share your meal with me during the lunchtime. He said that I like to give you a name called Ambedkar. His name originally was Ambedkar. From that, he said that you make it to my name as Ambedkar, and he was himself as an upper caste, but that is the time he became Ambedkar. So this is a transformative journey he has in his life. By the time he grew up a little in the middle school, teachers came up to Subedar ji and said, your child is genius. Your child is so intelligent. I think he has a very bright future. You need to really make sure this child gets the best in his education. And that's the reason today Ambedkar, anywhere you go to, I went to London School of Economics, I have seen his place is kept as a museum at where he was staying. Some of the statues you can think of in Switzerland, WHO, United Nations building, the idol of Ambedkar is all there, all people worship, and his idols today is a great value addition to the social justice, equity, and this fraternity, all these principles which he have been not only practicing, also he has written extensively. I am very poor. I feel that at the moment I have a poverty of speech, because it is such a wealth of information, such a wealth of literature, what he created, and possibly I lose that. Possibly I was there yesterday to purchase some of his volumes. Yes, it is a time that I should also have this test of reading. With this, I like to close, welcoming everybody once again, and this is a wonderful occasion to inaugurate this 20th Ambedkar Memorial Lecture for 2024. It is also one of the chapter in our book. Of this in the event, I'm sure we'll have a wonderful evening today. Good luck and my best wishes to you. Thank you so much once again.
Today, the AML is inaugurated by Professor Shankar Das, Pro Vice Chancellor now. There was a time, Professor Shankar Das, myself, Mr. BC, Mr. Damu, we used to look for a place to have a meeting. In this place, there was no scope for a meeting. We used to go outside TSS to have a meeting, to discuss about issues and all kind of challenges we faced. From there, today, the Pro Vice Chancellor is Shankar Das. I think it's a long journey. It's a big success. It's also a moment of celebration for me. Something unexpected, and I am so happy that he is here. Thank you for honoring this occasion, Professor Shankar Das. Now, AML, I remember I have to recall my dates here. I joined in 91. I remember at that time Mr. Bise, Mr. Damu, there was one Mr. Topo, and there are a few other senior people. They went to the court and to implement reservation. That was the beginning, and they were fighting. That is the time I joined. And I also came through after the court gave a verdict, and I am the first beneficiary probably. I joined here as a faculty. And from there, at that time, this Ambedkar Jayanti used to be held in one of the classrooms. Only all the SC/ST employees used to assemble, have some sweets, some Buddha Vandana, and then go. That used to be the case. Then I joined and I took over. Why not make this as an exercise? So we used to call somebody and give some talk. We started inviting our own registrar, with whom many of us had problems. We used to invite registrar to give a talk. So since we invited, having no option, they used to prepare Ambedkar volumes that they read and they come and talk about. This is how we started. And they also could not say no to these kind of invitations. And they genuinely read and then came and made a presentations. And we still remember all those registrars, Mr. Bandhopadhyaya, then Professor Aikara, Professor Hetsu. These were the people who were holding higher position at that time. But they, for the first time, they started reading Ambedkar, and they were also surprised to see that so much of wealth has been created by Baba Sahib, and that we did not know this. And that is how it started. Slowly, then we started formalizing this. We started inviting people who were known to Ambedkar literature from other universities, and they spoke. And then by the time you know that the Tata Institute student deserves all appreciations, they entered. Sir, why can't we join you? And then we were so happy, otherwise we were alone running. Tata Institute student joined. Then it became a team, students plus faculty plus SC/ST association, welfare association. This is a three-pillar program. It became very powerful. And whenever then we approached the director gave, why don't you give a proposal, we'll make it a regular event, institute will bear everything. Then we were also a little apprehensive, if that is the case, probably institute will take over everything, then you are nobody there. So we were a little apprehensive. But then slowly the student volunteers came forward and they took a lead. But then we wanted that some faculty should be there. Since I was crazy from the beginning, so I was there, naturally I was accepted as a coordinator, and then we are here as the 20th Memorial Lectures. I think the student TSS deserves all the appreciation. The students saw to it that fund is mobilized, going to faculty, going to students, going to the alumni, everything. But that time we used to have program in a limited way. As years passed, there were well-meaning faculty, directors, T.R. Singh and Professor Parasuram, time it took a larger shape. And he gave this convention center when it was ready, which is a huge, cost a lot of money, that even now it costs a lot of money to have this event. But the institute has been kind enough to have this program, Ambedkar Memorial Lecture, for many years now. So we are here, I know the number of audience here relatively less, maybe there are a lot of confusion. We had invited Professor Shanti Sri from JNU Vice Chancellor, but unfortunately for health reasons, she could not make it. Bakra mila hai hamare liye, Dr. Shailesh. I was also Bakra once. Professor Vivek Kumar was supposed to come and he could not come, but a lot of political things. The same way I was caught. By the same student group, volunteers. You have to kill. So I was like this. And I used to say I am the emergency batsman. So today he is the emergency batsman. He was trying his best to evade, but student did not let him go. So I think it's a great obligation Dr. Shailesh has done. There was hardly any time given to him. But I know that he is the person who can deliver, because there is so much I know. We used to discuss about this volume, what Baba Sahib said, this volume, what Baba Sahib said. And I know his depth of knowledge on Baba Sahib's writings. And the number of research projects he has done on communities, nomadic tribes, so many communities. I don't want to go into that domain because he will speak about it. So, on behalf of the AML organizing committee, I extend my very, very sincere thanks to Dr. Shailesh, who has accepted this at the last minute. Maybe the vote of thanks will follow, but I wholeheartedly again once again thank our Pro Vice Chancellor. I know he had a lot of other schedule on Saturday. He came to grace this occasion. Thank you, Professor Shankar Das. That's all for me. Thank you.
Dr. Shaileshkumar Darokar secured his Masters of Arts in Social Work in 1994 from TISS Mumbai, and he did an MPhil in 1998 and PhD in Sociology in 2010 from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He joined TISS Mumbai in 2002 as an assistant professor. For a brief period of time, he served as an associate dean at the Social Protection Office, TISS Mumbai. Currently, he is an assistant professor and also chairperson for Center of Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policies. With a focus on Dalit empowerment, social movements in India, and philosophy of Ambedkarism, his academic pursuits delve deep into the societal fabric. He has spearheaded several research projects commissioned by the Government of Maharashtra aimed at the development of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, nomadic tribes and denotified nomadic tribes, which include major study on manual scavengers and sanitation workers in Gujarat, and he did a similar study in Mumbai. His notable publication consists of 2 books. First one is Navayana Buddhism, Context, Debates and Theories, co-authored with Subodh M.W. and Bodhi S.R. And his next book is Apart, a work co-authored with Sudharak Alve and Bodhi S.R. To his credit, he has several publications in many peer-reviewed journals. Besides all these, he has been a great support and motivation to a number of students from humble backgrounds. We all are eagerly waiting for his insightful thoughts now. Thank you. Jai Hind.
On the dais, respected Professor Shankar Das Sir, Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor A. Ramaiah, the Faculty Coordinator of the AML and also Dean, Equal Opportunity Center. Among the colleagues sitting, it's very warming to see them, many of my colleagues. Then AML organizing committee members, the respected guests who were part of the institute and today they have been here, Professor Mr. Visesa, then the staff member Damoji and others. On the dais is also sitting my colleague Professor Vaishali, who recently assumed a new role in the Office of Students Affairs. And the many known faces sitting here. As Professor Ramaiah pointed out, this is a 20th Ambedkar Memorial Lecture. Luckily, or fortunately, I have witnessed all the 19 lectures in the past, and I never thought that I will be delivering the 20th lecture. All the speakers, starting from Gail Onway to Elinar Jeliet to Professor S.K. Thora to Professor Gopal Guru, Kanchalaya sir, all were stalwarts. That is something about AML that actually it has always carried forward the intellectual legacy of Baba Sahib Ambedkar. And in that sense, then today I have been given this great honor. And I'm really thankful to the Institute, especially the Vice Chancellor of the Institute, Pro Vice Chancellor Professor Shankar Das, Professor Ramaya, organizing committee members, all the staff, administration, that you thought that I will be doing justice with this Ambedkar Memorial Lecture. When it came to the topic of today's Ambedkar Memorial Lecture, I was not very sure on what topic I should actually be speaking. But then, coming from Maharashtra, and Maharashtra's great cultural history, and born and raised in a social milieu where Ambedkar, Baba Sahib Ambedkar, has been the center of all activities. In fact, if you see, he's been a role model for the hard work and educational achievements, and he's a symbol of intelligence and great knowledge. He's a cultural icon of self-respect and dignity for me. And the last, actually, a political figure of resistance and existence. That's how I look at Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar. Given this kind of a cultural reality, which is so greatly influenced by the life of Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, and the kind of policies that he has shaped for this great nation, I thought that I will be able to make sense of some of the current debates that are going on in our country. And I will not go out of Maharashtra because that is where I have most of my data and most of my viewpoints that I have gathered and can speak about with some kind of authority. And hence I said I will be more comfortable to speak on reservation in the context of Baba Sahib's whole work. Now, numerous communities, if we see today, particularly in Maharashtra and many other parts of India, if you follow the debate very closely, the 2-3 emerging points emerging debates that we see, that most of the communities are demanding reservation in some or the other categories. We find those who are not part of the OBC category are demanding their inclusion in OBC category. Those who are already part of the OBC category feel that actually the OBC category has become so overcrowded, it needs to be decongested. They have no any kind of opportunity to fight within the OBC category, and hence there should be some mechanism whereby they stand good chances to compete with other dominant within the OBC. Second, if we can see, within OBC there are numerically very dominant groups. And as a result, there is something called micro OBC, a category which cannot compete with the numerically dominant group within the OBC. And these are basically the artisan groups. Again, I am speaking only for Maharashtra. For rest of the India also, if we take other states, it's more or less the same kind of data and same kind of debate that we will get. They cannot compete with the numerically dominant, therefore they are finding other mechanisms to compete with and compete within other categories. And the last category if we see, which is across India if we see, the nomadic communities and denotified communities of India, who are innumerably put into the OBC category at central level, and in their respective state they are part of the NTDNT. Within NTDNT they are further divided with NTU A, B, C, this kind of a categorization. And this category strongly feels that there is a historical injustice that have been done with them. The very fact that actually they have been kept hanging, neither they are properly been categorized as OBC in one particular state, nor they are ST, and there is this anomaly associated with them, that they have been put into different categories in different states. If I give you example of the Kaikadis from Maharashtra, they are in one category in Marathwada, they are in another category in Vidarbha, they are in third category in Andhra, and in Karnataka they are in some other category. Their language, their culture, everything is same. And this community feels this is some kind of injustice that has happened, and these anomalies are there, reports after reports that have been pointed out. Another important point that I want to make, these are the communities, NTDNT, which have a historical stigma that associated with them. And that is their nomadism and the tag of being criminal. They're literally being hunted across India, wherever state we go. Now, given all these issues, today we will find from Manipur to different parts of India, more than 210 proposals lying with different ministries for their inclusion in the various categories. And that was the reason that I thought I should be trying to speak on this issue, where at least some reflection that I can make. So, I have organized my presentation today into two parts. The part one actually will be giving some kind of a chronological kind of a chronology of reservation. In other words, we can say the history of evolution of the reservation in India. Generally, we feel that it's only after the constitution came into existence that reservation has come in this country. But reservation has a long history in our country. And we cannot understand this unless we go back to colonial period. And we find most of the categories and their origin that can be traced back to the colonial period. The term backward classes historically evolved in South India. And this happened before the enactment of the constitution. It was the Madras government that framed Grant in Aid Code in 1885 for regulating financial aid to educational institutions to provide special facilities for students of depressed classes. The depressed classes during that time was used for the untouchables. Similarly, if we see the Fort St. George Gazette of number 40 of November 5, 1895 mentions grants in aid to schools for backward classes, which included most of the untouchable caste of Madras Presidency. And this has been beautifully documented by Mark Galanter, a very renowned US professor of jurisdiction, professor of law, who studied the reservation policies in India. And most important, during the colonial period, if we see, we cannot but ignore the contribution of Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj. Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj in 1902 brought in reservation, and this reservation was not only in school system, but this was the first ever education in the government services and in other educational institutions. 54% of the seats were reserved for all the what we call today the Bahujans, the SC, ST, OBCs, wherever their representation was not there. Although we have been using this term reservation, it never started with reservation. It all started with representation. The argument made by the social reformers were for the representation. The kind of a cultural landscape that we have, the kind of a plurality, cultural plurality that this country has, it needed representation to be given to different communities because they have been historically disadvantaged. Third, if we see, in the line was the Madras Presidency, which included the present Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, north part of Kerala and certain parts of present Karnataka, where it was introduced in September 1921 by the Justice Party, which came to power in the province on the plank of curbing the existing Brahmin monopoly. In all, when Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj took over, he also found the same thing. And that's why this representation issue came into play. Next was the Bombay Presidency PC. There is a famous Star Committee that was set up within the Bombay Presidency, and Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was a member of that committee. 32, we all know that Babasaheb had a pact with Mahatma Gandhi, which is called Pune Pact, and that has its own history, that which I narrate a little later. So till 1935, if we see, including the Travancore, the Maharaja of Travancore, how they actually have been providing this kind of representation to different communities in order to provide them the representation in governance and in educational institutions and also in government jobs. At national level, if we see, reservation was introduced for the scheduled caste through the initiative of Dr. B.R. Babasaheb Ambedkar. And he did that in 1943 when he was appointed the Viceroy Executive Council as a member. He secured reservation, post-matric scholarship, what we have today, the overseas scholarship scheme for the scheduled caste. Even today, Ministry of Central Government has this overseas scheme available, which could then be automatically extended to ST on attainment of independence. This kind of initiative we see, including Babasaheb Ambedkar's, had an immediate kind of a impact that we can see all the Maharajas, Maharaja of Baroda, Sayajirao Gaikwad, princely state of Mysore, Travancore, all of them were not the British government. They were the one who were originally the Indians, and they were thinking about this kind of work. Similarly, if we see, I will not go because that is not my forte, that the reservation for the ST, it also has a very long history. It has a long history in the sense that it also starts from the 18th century, 19th century, where the British government has identified the backward tracts. The history goes back to that kind of a reality. And by 1935, we find two main important terms that are being used for the scheduled tribes today. Today's scheduled tribes, and that is the primitive tribes and backward tribes. Therefore, when the issues at national level for reservation within the ST category crop up, for example, we had a very simmering kind of anger coming on the streets in the case of Manipur. I think this is very important, and how it is connected to shaping the reservation policy by Babasaheb Ambedkar, I'll focus on that. If you see the colonial period, and particularly the period from 1919, or I will go back a little late, back from 1909 till 1935. This is a period which is marked by what is called the British government's political reforms. We had Monto-Medlow reforms, Montague-Chelmsford reform in 1919. We had series of roundtable conferences where representation from across India represented themselves in roundtable conference. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, M.C. Raja, untouchable leaders of that time represented the untouchables in roundtable conference. But another interesting part that is very important for us to understand is that this is also a period when we have number of movements by the untouchable communities. You must have heard the movement's name called Adi Dharma by Manguram in Punjab. Adi Hindu movement in United Provinces, today's Uttar Pradesh, by Swami Achyutanand. There was Bhagyareddy Verma in Andhra, Jogendranath Mandal in Bengal, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in this part of Periyar in the Madras and that presidency. All of them were talking about how they are the Adi, the original inhabitants of this country. And being original inhabitants of this country, they have a distinct identity and they should not be seen or treated merely as a part of the Savarna group or the Hindu. Because all the representation that is given to particular community then, and all these reforms were the political reforms which provided representation on communal line. We find the Sikhs in Punjab, the Mohammedans, the Anglo-Indians, the Christians, the Lingayats. All of them are demanding representation on a communal line. And this is precisely because of the kind of political reforms that the British government actually unfolded. Now, during this time, why did Baba Sahib Ambedkar become a pan-India leader? When Ambedkar goes to Roundtable Conference in London, why do people from Uttar Pradesh and Agra region write a letter in their blood that Ambedkar is the pan-India leader of the untouchables? And this has a history that we need to understand, and also the role of Baba Sahib, the kind of role that he played during this time. So, if we see, the Dalits had different strategies during this time. All this, Ada Dharma, Ada Hindu, Ada Dravida, Ada Kannada, all these movements had one common thing, and that is the political representation. They wanted to become a part of a governing, ruling community. Apart from that, if we see, this is a prominent demand, but internally, the dignity, self-respect, equality, justice, that was another kind of a demand they had. And they wanted to become economically independent from the dominant caste as much as possible. Fourth, they were also exploring the possibilities of going out of the Hindu fold. But most importantly, political representation became a crucial issue for all these movements. So, from 1909 to 1930, as we said, is marked by a process of competition for political representation. Indian Council Act of 1909, 1919, and 3 roundtable conferences ultimately culminated in the act called 1935 Act, which actually provided India a partial political autonomy as a major step towards a complete independence. Now, given this kind of a scenario, how did Baba Sahib Ambedkar becomes a prominent figure shaping the policies of this country? Baba Sahib gives a famous testimony before the South Borough Committee. A young Ambedkar returning from his education in US and UK, giving us first written testimony. And as Professor Shankar Das pointed out, he was not allowed to sit in a classroom. Someone who was not allowed to take Sanskrit as one of the subjects gives not oral testimony, gives a written testimony. And most of the volumes that we find today, most of the time I used to discuss with Professor Ramaya, how did Ambedkar, when did he get a time to write this? Ambedkar never, like an academic to get my promotion, never wrote his volumes to get anything in return. Rather, he was in a struggle for the larger humanity to experience their dignity, self-respect and all those things. It is in that quest actually Baba Sahib had written so much of, produced so much of literature that we can see that one person in one lifetime can, what kind of a social transformation that he can bring. So given this kind of reality, Baba Sahib was arguing on a very different note. And most of the leaders of that time, and in Maharashtra, Maharishi Vittal Ramji Shinde is highly respected figure. He worked for the untouchables. And most of Maharishi Vittal Ramji Shinde's thesis about the origin of untouchability comes very close to the conclusion that Baba Sahib Ambedkar has drawn. And most of these kind of leaders that we see, they were also working for untouchables. But how did Baba Sahib Ambedkar becomes very distinct and very different from them? That Ambedkar has made it amply clear in his written statement before the Southborough Committee that the untouchables are a separate element in Indian society. He also attempted to draw attention of the British government to the lack of social endosmosis, a sociological concept that Baba Sahib Ambedkar is using here as a student of anthropology in Columbia University. Any anthropological and sociological writings, social endosmosis refers to fraternity. Do Indians have fraternity? Do they interact, communicate with each other on equal footing? Or there is something which stops them from interacting and communicating with each other? And he brings to the notice of the Britishers that what Indian society lacks is the social endosmosis. And it depends upon the extent of communication, participation, or endosmosis. Like-mindedness was essential for harmonious life. Harmonious life both in social and in political domain of life. And that is what is lacking. A caste consciousness is the defining element which is an obstacle in their social interaction with each other as a Hindu and poses a greater challenge to settle social endosmosis. Ambedkar is writing this in his testimony to the Southborough Committee. And then there are a series of arguments that he has made when he was demanding separate electorates on the basis that the vast majority of these people are a distinct entity even in a given Indian social life. And in his plenary session, fifth sitting, 20th November 1930 in Roundtable Conference, and I want to quote that, what is he arguing? Not only have they a separate existence, but they have also been assigned to them a statute which is immediately distinct from the status occupied by any other community in India. He is talking about the untouchables. There are communities in India which occupy a lower and subordinate position, but the position assigned to them, the depressed classes, is totally different. It is one which is midway between that of the serf and the slaves, and which may, for convenience, be called servile, with this difference that the serf and the slaves were permitted to have physical contact from which the depressed classes are barred. This is a kind of a comparison that Baba Sahib Ambedkar is doing with the European kind of a serf and servile classes. What is worse, that this enforced servility and bar to human intercourse due to their untouchability involves not merely the possibility of discrimination in public life, but actually works out as a positive denial of all equality of opportunity and the denial of those most elementary of civil rights on which all human existence depends. This is Baba Sahib arguing in Round Table Congress. Now, second point that I want to make very specifically, another 15 minutes, sir? 10-15 minutes, I'll try to wrap up as it is. And I personally see that it is very important that how Baba Sahib Ambedkar played a role of framing the three very important articles in our constitution. And today's debates on the reservation, on the representation, are all around these three articles. Article 340 relating to the OBCs, Article 341 relating to the category called scheduled caste, and Article 342 with regards to scheduled tribes. Look at the sequence. Most of the OBCs in India, I don't know why they Maharashtra at least they think, why did Baba Sahib put 340 OBC article before 341 and 342? Very, very important. These three articles, if you see and their shaping is concerned, I think Baba Sahib Ambedkar was piloting them very carefully, very meticulously, foreseeing some of the challenges that this country will have in future. So, talking about the Article 341 and 342, because originally these are the two articles in the Constitution. The reservation, representation comes to these two categories much before Constitution comes into existence. It has a long history. And what I am going to quote later on from the Constituent Assembly debates that Baba Sahib Ambedkar is defending this Article 341 and 342, you will understand that what was going on in Baba Sahib Ambedkar's mind and how every member of the Constituent Assembly stood by Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar's rationale and logic and the long vision that he had for this country. 2-3 judgments I quickly want to go through them about the Article 340 and 342 and the number of cases that have gone to Supreme Court for either for inclusion in the list or exclusion from the list or the modification in the name of the community. These kind of 3 cases that you will find have gone into the court as far as the demands for reservation in scheduled caste or scheduled tribe categories are concerned. The laudable object of the said Article 341, 342 is to provide additional protection to the members of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. This is one of the judgment of the court. The words caste and tribes in the expression scheduled caste and scheduled tribes are not used in the ordinary sense of the terms, but are used in the sense, the definition contained in Article 366, Clause 24 and 366, Clause 25. In this view, a caste is a scheduled caste or a tribe is a scheduled tribe only if they are included in the presidential order issued under Article 341 and 342 for the purpose of the constitution. Very clearly the Supreme Court is giving its judgment. No talking here and there that my caste was supposed to be there, this means this only, and therefore it has to be there, and therefore that has to be excluded. No. If it is there in the constitution, it has gone with full scrutiny. Clause 2 of the Article 341 and 342 does not permit anyone to seek modification of the said orders. By leading evidences that the caste tribe A alone is mentioned in the order, but caste or tribe B is also part of caste tribe so and so. That argument doesn't make any kind of a sense in the court of law. Orders once issued under clause 1 of the Article 342 or 341 cannot be varied by subsequent orders or notification, even by President, except by law of Parliament. Why did Babasaheb Ambedkar give supremacy to the Parliament? This is very, very important and crucial aspect. Hence, it is not possible to say that the state governments or any other authority or courts or tribunals are vested with any power to modify or vary the said orders. Very clearly, it has been noted down. Now I'll just quote when in the Constituent Assembly these Article 341 and 342 were debated. How did Babasaheb Ambedkar give his logic? Why the Parliament of India has to be supreme, and any discussion around this has to go as a bill in the Parliament, has to be discussed by all the members of the Parliament, and then only it has to become an act or legislation. No any other authority can decide or determine who could be a scheduled caste and who could be a scheduled tribes in this country. In the debates of Constituent Assembly, while moving to add new articles 300A and 300B, which subsequently became Article 341 and 342 of the Constitution, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar explained as follows, and I quote, "The object of these two articles, as I stated, was to eliminate the necessity of burdening the Constitution with a long list of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. It is now proposed that the President in consultation with the Governor ruler of the state should have the power to issue a general notification in the Gazette specifying all the castes and tribes or groups therefore deemed to be scheduled castes and scheduled tribes for the purpose of these privileges which have been defined for them in the Constitution. The only limitation that has been imposed is this, that once a notification has been issued by the President, which undoubtedly he will be issuing in consultation with and on the advice of the government of each state, therefore, if any elimination was to be made from the list so notified, or any addition was to be made in that list, must be made by the Parliament and not by the President." This is Ambedkar arguing in Constituent Assembly, and last three lines are very important. The object is to eliminate any kind of political factors having a play in the matter of the disturbance in the scheduled so published by the president. That is the reason that in Manipur case, when the High Court gave judgment, it had no validity. If it is not Parliament that is supreme, deciding these issues, any government of the day will simply play with this list and bring in the future of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in this country in jeopardy. That's the kind of a vision that Babasaheb Ambedkar actually argued out in Constituent Assembly, and all of the members actually stood by Ambedkar on this point. Now, the last segment actually I just want to end that having argued about Babasaheb Ambedkar's role, how he shaped these policies of reservation, I personally feel, and most of the people, intellectuals, activists in Maharashtra that I interact with every day and night, feel the same. In the last section of my presentation, then I would like to focus on the larger vision of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. Because unfortunately, Babasaheb Ambedkar is seen only as a leader of, sometimes as of the Dalits, and Ambedkar comes into discussion only when the issue of reservation comes. But that's not the case. Babasaheb Ambedkar's long journey actually started with Bahishkrit Bharat, the boycotted India, and this journey ends with Prabuddha Bharat, the enlightened India. The enlightened India envisioned not for a specific community. An enlightened India envisioned for all Indians. And hence his vision about India goes much beyond the reservation and other issues. Yes, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar wanted reservation of political reservation only for 10 years. But he also wanted reservation as long as these inequalities remain. I will not get into that, but why I am bringing this? Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was deeply aware of the limitations of acquiring power within the liberal constitutional framework. Such a visionary will not confine by just giving you reservation. That's all. He had witnessed the political subordination of the Dalit members of parliament in the Congress during his own lifetime in the parliament. For him, the fundamental element of democracy were liberty, equality, and fraternity. In other words, social justice. He tried to enshrine them in the Constitution of India along with several safeguards to the minorities. However, he realized the limitations of the state institutions. For instance, legislations can ensure rights of the people, but it may not create a larger social conscience. We need a larger social conscience. The core of it is fraternity, which is lacking in the social osmosis. How do we bring this? And therefore, Babasaheb turned to the very great and Eastern tradition, that is Buddhism. And 1956, to my mind, is very crucial. Because that refined his idea of Prabuddha Bharat And if you refer to his article in the Journal of Mahabodhi Society on this subject, the Buddha and the future of his religion, how Baba Sahib is underlying Buddhism not just as a religion, Buddhism as a knowledge project. Buddhism as a larger emancipatory kind of a framework, where the deep concept like the karuna, the compassion, the maitri is not simply love. Maitri goes much beyond that. It's talking about equanimity. And that's where I personally feel that alternative to reservation policy that Baba Sahib could envision is in the form of what the Navayana Buddhism that he has given to the whole country. He maintained that society must have either the sanction of law or the sanction of morality to hold it together. Without either, society is sure to go to the pieces. Therefore, morality must remain the governing principle in every society. That's the kind of a viewpoint that Baba Sahib held in high regards. The vows that he reiterated, the commitment to the path of Baba Buddha, which includes the practice of noble eightfold path, the precepts, the fundamental tenets of liberty, equality, fraternity. And I'm talking only about Maharashtrian reality, of which I'm also part and I'm product of that reality. I think one section has emerged in Maharashtrian Ambedkar Buddhist society that today is not concerned about reservation. It is concerned about the larger notions of liberty, equality, fraternity, and larger humanity. And therefore, I think this country somehow has to move beyond reservation. That's my kind of saying this. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity. I will stop here, and thank you so much once again to Secretary Sir, to Vice Chancellor, to Sir, the board organizing, KML organizing students committee, the administration, and everyone for giving me this opportunity.
Where do you see the future of this debate? Do you believe that the reservation in private sector can become a reality in India, especially in the time when the caste dynamics is oversimplified? Thank you.
Hello. Sir, yeah. Jamil sir, thank you very much for this wonderful lecture. You have been an inspiration for many Ambedkarites here in campus. And so, though you are emergency batsman, but you deserve to be there as a speaker for 28th AMM. In the month of February, Supreme Court Constitution bench asked why advance of caste can't be excluded from the quotas, and the Justice Gawai, who said that once a person gets into IPS or IS, his children do not suffer from the disadvantages of others from his group who live in a village, yet his family will get the benefits of reservation for generations. And then he handed over this to the state government to decide this. So what do you think? What is your opinion on this? Thank you.
Hello. Sir, first of all,
I would like to thank for this enlightening lecture of yours. I agree with the question which my friend Sanket has put forward regarding private sector. But sir, I do believe and have some documentary evidence which substantiate that the representation of the OBC, let's not talk about the private sector, there is no representation of the OBC in government sector as well. So my question to you is that can the proportional representation solve the problem of the representation of the OBCs as well as the STs and STs?
Hello, sir. My question is basically about the recent debate on the categorization of reservation between the SC, ST and even OBCs. So what is the opinion of Baba Sahab and what's your opinion as far as you have like a brief idea about all the reservation issues? So another question is recently there was debate going on. Recently, Karnataka government and the state government have also scrapped the reservation given to the Muslims. Especially there was 4% reservation were given provided to the Muslims separate from the OBCs. So what's the Baba Sahab Ambedkar our views on those specific issues? Thank you so much.
We will respond, then you can take.
Thank you for the questions. Now, if you go for the first question, the reservation in private sector. See, in the 90s and early 2000s, there was a group of intellectuals who began to make this demand of the reservation in private sector. And largely it was driven by the academic group, and Mr. Thorat and others were crucial member of that group. But if we see from 1993 onwards, we have gone for liberalization and globalization. In fact, actually this process started from 1993-94, and most of the sectors have gone into private. But the fact of the matter is that within government sector itself, there were special drives going on. Why this special drive came? Because the existing reservation itself was not being implemented. Now, whenever reservation issue comes, the implementation part always comes into play. Whether there should be reservation in private sector, that's very different kind of domain in which we can debate for long time. But at this point in time, we need to have such a kind of a policies where we focus more on quality education. We are able to provide the required skills to larger population and make them employed. Now, as long as this kind of measurements are in place, I think nobody will ask for reservation. To be very honest and to be very critical and to be very outright, that we have been misled as far as the demands of reservation of late that have emerged are concerned. Think properly. What are the basic issues that people are struggling? And if I genuinely ask, if everybody is given the reservation with the economically weaker section, now so nobody is outside the purview of reservation. Everybody has a reservation. Have the issues of the country been resolved, or will they be resolved? That is a fundamental question. And there actually answers lie somewhere else. And we should also understand that the global economy that actually comes into play, how actually it determines everybody's existence. So, by just giving mere reservation, issues would have resolved, then we did not have, actually we would have not more demands, but lesser demands for that. But I think there is such a discourse that people are actually given this impression that once they demand for reservation, their issues will be resolved. I think it substantially also lies into the domain of development. The many parts, and we know all, being students of TISS, we all know what kind of lopsided development we have in this country. If we go into one particular district of Pune and take few talukas of Pune, they are very prosperous. You will see America in there. But if you go in some talukas, you will see that which part of the world you are in. And then when people are given the impression that you are backward because you have no reservation, then that is something which is very, very misleading. How do we address this here? How seriously is the Swaminathan Committee report being taken in this country? It's a revolutionary report. And instead of actually demanding the reforms within the agriculture sector, why farmers are committing suicide, we are demanding reservation. I mean, I look at this, I might be wrong, or my analysis might be wrong, but we need to get into that debate where we really try to unpack the issue in multiplicity and holistic way and try and see whether it can be a solution. I mean, that is the only answer I can give. Then coming to Samir's question, sub-classification or sub-categorization, the Andhra judgment was actually came in Chandrababu Naidu's time, that was rejected by High Court. This time it is upheld. I do not know what is the logic behind that, but then Supreme Court earlier has actually gone in on record saying that actually these categories, because it's a very homogeneous category. The scheduled caste, if you see, the only criteria that applies in order to put anybody in the list of scheduled caste is the educational and economic disabilities arising out of the practice of adultery. Now, giving sub-categorization, again the same issue comes. Maharashtra also you have, for example, the Buddhists, they have gone far ahead. There are many other communities we have left behind. Andhra, you have Mala Madhika. Many parts of India have this country. And we need to properly really think that actually has really the time of subcategorization come? If it has come, we should. And that's where I was saying that in Maharashtra, there is one section. We say, what reservation are you talking? I don't need your reservation. But don't impose any identity on me. You take my reservation, okay? And there is one section we say, you take my reservation, but give me your caste. Give me your caste. There are different shades in that. But I will tell you, one section has already reached a stage where they don't want any more reservation. And they have realized that they have benefited from it. Now they have to be there on their own. And it is not a permanent pension. That is one. So we have Tamil Nadu's interesting case, but there is different history for them. The communities which want to come out of scheduled caste, but want to be part of other categories. That's also the kind of a stigma associated with scheduled caste category. In Punjab, there are historically criminal castes which are part of scheduled caste. Now they feel they are not criminal caste, they are criminal tribes. And therefore government should remove them from scheduled caste and put them in scheduled tribe. Now imagine why? Because the stigma is still associated with untouchability. Now these are very complex issues which do not have direct kind of response or answer. And third, OBC issue of underrepresentation and in the government sector. But if we take another kind of example, there are many parts of India where OBC in political sense are overrepresented. M.N. Srinivas, talked about dominant caste. And these dominant castes actually have created a political domain of their own. That is also reality. But again, and I think the present scenario, we see that actually it is heading towards subcategorization. Time has come. And in fact, post Kaka Kalalkar, Bihar and other states already had this categorization within the OBC category. And there is an intense debate in Mandal Commission report itself that some of the members has vehemently argued that we cannot compare, we cannot put forward among the backward and backward within backward in one category called OBC. We have to have most backward and some other categories whereby they automatically will be par with the backwards within the backwards. Now, given this kind of scenario, I really do not know. I can't speak authoritatively on that whether there should be proper representation, proportion to the issue will also come. Like for example, in Vidarbha, Maharashtra, OBC are highest in number. They don't need reservation. 65% reservation, political reservation, invariably goes to OBC, whether they contest from reserve seat or not reserve seat. How will you justify this? Now, these are some of the issues I think they are very important to reflect upon and engage.
Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim.